Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome once again to our Fatherland Group and our events where we have conversations pertaining to Nigeria. So now, for the my only other fellow female speaker in the house, let me just tell you a little bit about her before we welcome her to take the stage to bring us the welcome address. So, she's one of the founding directors of a company that provides advisory and insight across public, private, and third sector in UK and Africa. She's a BA Honours French graduate from 1968 of the University of Newcastle upon Tyne, and a longtime friend and student of Nigerian life and politics. In her 40+ years of career, she has worked in law and economic development, with a special interest in public law and constitutions. Great and small, she has maintained a lifelong interest in poetry, arts and culture, especially French language and literature, and the Celtic culture of her birthplace in Northumberland. Did I get it? Yes. As well as Black and African theatre, literature, and film. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me to welcome the chair of Fatherland, our very own Jo Wealleans. Jo, you're very welcome.
Thank you, Priscilla. Can everyone hear me all right?
Yes, we can hear you.
Good. Well, good afternoon, everyone. And I am extremely sensible of the immense honor accorded to me today in chairing this session, and I humbly hope to do justice to the extraordinary achievements of the honorable speakers and participants, especially the two giants we are looking forward to hearing from at the pinnacle of today's event. Segun Odegbami of IICC Shooting Stars of Ibadan FC and Emmanuel Okala of Enugu Rangers FC. When speaking to me about chairing today's event, Dele said to me, "You will have to have a connection to football, though." "That's easy," I replied. One of the first, if not the first things I learned to write was the football scores. As soon as I could hold a pencil, my father deployed me to take down the football results at 5 o'clock on a Saturday for him to see when he got home from work. Of course, the two local teams that we had were not brotherly, but bitterly rivals, Newcastle United and Sunderland. So I understood from an early age the passion for football and its place as almost the lifeblood of the community. For some perverse reason, in my child's mind, I decided I preferred Sunderland. But I think I kept that preference to myself because we were part and parcel in those days of Newcastle United and its famous team members, such as Jackie Milburn and later on the Charlton brothers, Bobby and Jack. These were people our fathers had been to school with. So I can really relate to the passion for football and all that goes with it in a community. Not forgetting that just like Enugu, for example, Newcastle was a place very much founded on coal, at least until Mrs. Thatcher came along and closed the pits in her wisdom. Not that the pits were great places to work, and some of us were secretly glad that our relatives would not have to spend days there anymore. But the speed with which the closure was accomplished scars communities to this day. Turning now to football and its role in the reconciliation of communities. As you may have heard recently, our problem in UK has been that we have absorbed whole into our sport the attitudes of colonialism. And as you may have heard, it's only now in 2021 and 2022 that the ugliness of that situation in cricket is last being brought into the light of day. Of course, up in Northumberland, where I come from, in case you don't know, we do play cricket and even have one or two fine cricket pitches, such as the one at Bamborough, where I come from. But now ask me if Northumberland has ever been allowed to enter into the realms of county cricket. It has not. We have not. We've never been, and we are still not there. Now, Dele said to me, I might need to just say a word about county cricket and the significance of not being allowed in there. It's simply this: if you can't enter a county, if you don't have a county cricket team, it means that your county can never be part of the teams from which the national team, the English team, is selected. So we've never had that. Pleasure. You know, nobody asked us. I mean, we may have said no, frankly, but in a way, perhaps from that, football became our game. Football is a game that we own, you know. So I really understand that feeling. And there's so much to know about identity and geography and colonialism, isn't there? Turning now to Nigeria and a few reflections about that. I would say many opportunities have been missed to allow identities to be recognized for the valuable cultural assets that they are. And what I see that Fatherland is doing is providing positive examples of identity for those coming after us. Young people especially need those examples. The minds of young people especially are formed around passion. And if the only passion they see is a passion to fight, then that is where their minds and identities will be directed or indeed exploited for good or ill. The kind of examples we're going to hear about today are remarkable examples of individuals who had the courage and the will to forge their own way and liberate their talent for the benefit of those whom they chose. And this in circumstances where they had experienced one of the bitterest, most upsetting struggles of the 20th century, the Biafran War, which I hope history will show did not start out as a war, but began instead as the Biafran secession, which in the interest of self-determination is how I personally have decided to refer to it from now on, in recognition of that original intention. It is very important to own the language that we use to describe things that are important to us, and not to let others, especially governments, define or redefine them for us. Just as our two speakers today showed by their remarkable example, that what could have been a bitter personal battle became instead, as they have described it, a brotherly rivalry and a shining example of what people can achieve if they only have the will and wish and personal courage to accomplish it. And of course, if the government does not get in their way. Indeed, today, I would say that football in particular is in many ways showing the way forward. In saying that, sadly, we must leave aside the recent example of the acquisition of Newcastle United by you-know-who. But I say to myself that hopefully this is only a station on the way to a better understanding of how to treat football, not as the possession of one man or woman, Priscilla, be he or she ne'er so wealthy, but as the collective accomplishment of many people and communities. I believe that in time, football may be able to show governments the way home when it comes to understanding and practicing a more holistic way of living and behaving and governing ourselves, and that Fatherland Group are providing a safe place and a platform from which to preach that history and that message. So on that note, I will hand back over to Priscilla, and thank you very much for your kind attention.
Our next speaker, we have heard a little from him earlier, but I think it's important that, again, we do justice. So let me just tell us a little bit about him. He's a friend of the house, a brother of the house, and always available whenever he's called upon. So he has a BA from the University of North Limpopo from 1973, and also an MSc in economics and personal management from the University of Cardiff from 1979. an MBA. We're not in any way going to be intimidated by any of these degrees. An MBA in management and social marketing communications, apologies, from the LaSalle University in 1985, and a PhD graduate in social systems science, interactive management and planning systems at the university, at the Union Graduate Institute in conjunction with Interact, the Institute of Interactive Management, Cincinnati, Ohio. Bala, I can't say that, that looks like a Welsh word. I'll leave him to correct us. Pennsylvania, 1994. He's a former CE University Registrar, CEO and CAO / Vice Chancellor of the University of North, now University of Limpopo, former CEO and CAO of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of the Republic of South Africa, and in recent years, a national, continental, and international projects and programs consultant and monitor and evaluator of the USAID-funded RSA TEL, the Zambian USAID /DOE grads 4s and 5s mathematics, TLMP, and so on. He also served as one of the Republic of South Africa's DOJCD's Ministerial Commissioner to transform defense intelligence, and as Executive Secretary of the Presidential Commission of Inquiry into the mandate and location of the RSA's Directorate of Special Operations. Amongst others, he served as the Replicable Gender Justice in Africa Colloquium, proponent organizer, coordinator and convener of in RSA and FDRE. Currently, he is keenly interested and involved in earnest synergistic transformative change and development within committed corporates in the Republic of South Africa, as well as honest nation building efforts for the RSA neglected rural-based national and First Nations, and is by invitation and sufficient consensus only involved in creating the appropriate environments and climates towards anchoring and effective relevant alternative forms of justice processes and strategies, including special interest mediation, presented restorative justice opportunities within conflict-riddled sovereignties. It's interesting that he's here with us today, the world over. He's also the founder and principal consultant of Rendezvous Consultants, CC, the founder, member director of Kabi Agrotronics Limited, and of Kabi Aero Optics Manufacturing Engineering Limited. His talents and his skills appears to have and to know no bounds. But he's very much, as I said, a friend of the house and a brother. And it's a privilege once again to welcome, to share with us, having heard all that we have shared today. He's just going to cap it all off for us. Let's welcome our very own Dr. Biki SV Minyuku. Doc, you are welcome once again. I can't hear you very well.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can. Thank you.
I hope I'll be able to capture what comes from my heart. I'm worried, though, that the network may disappoint me as we've been going along, and I just hope that I'll be able to finish a little bit of what I'm going to say very quickly. Apologies that I joined you a little late, and I have joined you with a little phone, so I'm not able to press anything on that phone with my thick fingers. Allow me to start off a little unconventionally. I want to say that the football maestros that we had today are actually Africa's very best. I know they are your best in Nigeria, but one lesson that we have learned, you were looking at the memories that you have, you could remember and have enjoyed, untold memories of Biafra. I can only talk about the lessons from South Africa, because that's where I am right now. We have lessons that we haven't shared with yourselves, but lessons we have learned from the Biafran War. And very quickly, I just wanted to share a few of them. Remember that the Biafran War actually served as an example to all independent strugglers for freedom and democracy. And let's remember that South Africa is actually one of the youngest democracies. So one lesson we learned is the interconnectedness of the struggles for freedom and democracy, which actually motivated us a lot in South Africa. Can you still hear me, Priscilla?
Yes, sir, we can.
Okay. Now, that lesson should not be underestimated because it's very, very important. And I think it is even important to the newest democracies after South Africa, including South Sudan. Secondly, what we have learned from that war, Biafran War, is that in our struggle, we cannot be weaponizing issues such as poverty and hunger. We cannot be militarizing them as well. In other words, like the football maestros have indicated to you, the struggle for freedom and democracy must be just, it must be fair, and it must be genuine. Of course, it's a continuous struggle itself. So we couldn't be weaponizing those things, but we had to fight the struggle across the board, militarily, in terms of economic sanctions. In fact, it will interest you to know that when we talked about sanctions in South Africa, many people said, look, they will hurt the very people you want to help. But it is those who had interest for apartheid to continue that kept saying that. We needed a new way of doing business rather than to keep talking about the same thing. Another lesson from this end, you know, from the Biafran War, history was taken out of your classrooms. We have also learned that actually, I think even chemical engineering was taken out of your universities. One of your universities in the South or thereabouts, actually chemical engineering was taken out of it. For South Africa, it was the entire system transplanted with Bantu education. Now, you need to know that Lagard's recipe was the same thing in South Africa for indirect rule as it was in Nigeria for indirect rule. And as Dele has said, the formula for the disaster that actually exists in every place where Lagard has been to date. So we learned that we needed to transmute and transplant the whole system, transform the whole system of education. We are still in the process of doing that, and it's going to take us a while to doing that. Now, like I said earlier on, when you gave me a chance, Priscilla, we should not actually conflate rivalry, competition with entrepreneurship and with conflicts, serious conflicts, where people actually even die. We need to think about rivalry in terms of competition. It helps to get the best out of people and out of nations. I just wanted to digress a little bit here quickly. I was going to be asking what was the scene for the South or for the Igbos and the Yorubas and all the nationalities that are in that space. And I think Dele has covered that very well, but just putting it differently in order to cap that with what I think is important for reconciliation is that you get to be punished for peaceful coexistence. You've been peacefully coexisting for years, and then you get punished for that. And seeds of destruction are planted between all the nationalities as if you have not coexisted before. And those seeds of hatred and conflict actually are what is the burning platform right now. But we have coexisted for years. Now, I'll put the second factor is chasing gods not our own. Now, the reality about chasing gods not our own is that we forget who we are, and we end up actually doing just about everything that is unlike us, including hating the next person or even killing the next person. And if you actually think about that whole history, and I want to say something about this thing. If you think about the philosophers, you have learned all of them, they tell Africans that there is nothing you can learn from history. And we have not proven that we can learn anything from history up till now. And that's really not true. History is the best lesson for us going forward. Which brings me to reconciliation as well. And I want to give examples because one of the real sins, and this is not a sin that was made by the Yorubas and the Igbos and the nationalities in the South. These are imported sins that came into that area, is to put you on the back foot all the time. You remain on the back foot just like we have all as Africans remained on the back foot. Now, when you regroup, like the father, like where we are right now, the Fatherland Group is doing, you regroup for the better. People don't understand that in essence, what you're doing is reconciling thought processes, reconciling ways of doing business and being in the future. And if you reconcile them from your own perspective as the Fatherland Group, it then makes sense when you say, let's use sport, for example, to reconcile, because sport is a reconciliator. Now, let me just give an example of what I mean by that. Sport actually helps you to consolidate your hopes. South Africa, Nigeria, still has hopes. Think about the Maoris, think about the American Indians, and relative to this hope that we are talking about, just try and check where their hope is. And you look at colonialism and what it has done for them. You look at us, we have hopes. We have to regroup and actually consolidate our hopes. How do you do that? You do that by identifying your national heroes. Now, you have national heroes. You just listened to a few of them today. Were you to look at the entire south of Nigeria, where I don't know if you have the same caliber of the best heroes in the north, but I leave that to you. Now, if you can literally identify them, you can reconcile the country utilizing that sport. But if you cannot identify your heroes, how are you going to celebrate them? Celebrating them is a reconciliation effort. That's a process. It's not like a sledgehammer where you do it once or you snap the finger and it happens. Think about the football maestros. They've been working at it for how long? That's why they are making a good case that actually you can reconcile the nation utilizing sport. Well, I leave the fact that they're even quoting Nelson Mandela out of it. But I also mentioned that a little earlier. I'm just saying you regroup not on the back foot in order to identify your heroes that you must celebrate. And when you celebrate them, it's actually a process. You look at all aspects of sports to be able to do in that. You consolidate various other things, including your generations of rights, not just for voting, not just for associations or associating, even for breathing clean air, even for development. They are your natural generations of rights. And when you now start talking development, you cannot arrest it because you have all sorts of entrepreneurial, all sorts of creativity happening, even if you were to mention the Igbos alone. But that's happening across all nationalities in that South. If it were to be recognized, those projects would actually reconcile and unify, for starters, the people in the South. I am not quite sure if the people in the North want to be reconciled with anybody. I think they are interested in probably ruling and power play, but I can't be an expert on Nigeria. You are the experts because you lead that. Now, I'm only saying that consolidate what is necessary if you are to start talking about justice, truth, reconciliation, and even reparations. Because if you don't do that, you will always be on the back foot. You need to be on the front foot for a change. Now, the Fatherland Group is helping you to be on the front foot. It's helping all Nigerians to be on the front foot. Priscilla, you're the forerunner of that front foot. And so remember that if you are right at the front, you are also at the back, depending on which angle we are looking at that cycle. Now, the idea of being front and back leaders in the Fatherland Group is to make sure that you move together in unison. Politically, that's another animal to address, but just let me say that a reconciliation effort starts with identifying your prides and sorrows, and you convert your sorrows into your prides. A reconciliation effort is built on truth. It's also built on justice. Now, obviously, the reparations comes into play, particularly if you think about all the survivors of the Biafran War. Now, they didn't ask for that war. In fact, nobody consulted them about it. It's funny because it was Nigerians actually engaging Nigerians in a war, instead of engaging them in dialogue to a point where you can find solutions. Is it possible? Yes, it is very possible. Now, I said I wanted to also look at other aspects, why it would appear that there are sins in this place. The stupendous stereotypes and myths that Dele talked about, and we keep focusing on them, are the ones that are putting the Nigerians on the back foot. If we can simply recognize who is actually doing that for a change, then we'll be so self-enlightened that going forward will never be a problem. Because one of the things that, in fact, you put on the back front, on the back foot, is the fact that the people in the South are very self-enlightened. Call it differently if you like, and say educated. And what are the people that are buttressing you interested in? that brain trust that you all have, including the natural resources that you have in the South. They are really not interested in anything other than that. But the day you put them on the table and confront that reality, that's when they will have to make peace with their own God, if they have a God. Well, obviously, there are gods and there are gods. I said, stop chasing gods, not your own. Now, having said that, I would want to conclude by mentioning just a few thoughts here. I did indicate that according to Hegel, one thing that I appreciate from this philosopher is that the world was never accomplished on anything else but passion. When you look at the soccer players, they manifest, you heard one chief says, they play that soccer as if there is no tomorrow. They are so passionate about it as if they are going to die. Now, if nothing in the world was ever built without passion, we ought to recognize that passionate people need to be recognized as well. But here is the one thing about what I don't like about Hegel. He forgets that it is people, we learn from people, we learn lessons from people themselves, and they play games, not just for fun. They play to win, but they play very gently to win. They actually play very fairly to win, like the soccer maestros that you talked about today. Now, having said that, I would want to mention just one more thing to leave you as food for thought. And I hope you can still hear what I'm saying. I did say to you that Biafra was born out of a yearning for freedom, for justice, for self-determination. And we can even add love and peace if we want. Now, was Nigeria ever a unitary state? If you look at the background information that we are given and the current reality, it's a federal state. It's not a unitary state. If you will look at all the nationalities that are in the South, maybe they need that orange so that they can be under one umbrella. I would use an umbrella. But I don't know whether, in fact, the North want to be part of the South. They want the South to be ruled and governed by the North. Maybe it's not that simple, but the reality of it is a high time that the South actually got united. And when you're united, you speak with one voice for the better, instead of just one nationality saying we would want to realize our own self-determination. If it's all the South together, who can touch you? I don't think anybody will touch you, but maybe there will be somebody who will touch you. They would have to touch you on the bargaining table. They will have to touch you on the reconciliation table. They will have to speak truth, but who will be speaking truth to power? It will be the united nationalities of the South, because then you can speak truth to whatever power without even saying, there is politics, we want to talk. Remember, when you breathe, it's politics. When you eat, it's politics. When you educate your children, it's politics. When they have to play soccer, it's politics. If they don't even have a playing field to go manifest their skills. So this politics, let's demystify it. If it is life, let's make it a real life for everybody, particularly people from the South. I'm saying that jealously because I'm further down in the South, in South Africa. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Dr. Minyuku. We always appreciate your input, and it comes from a live place of experience. It comes from walking it. It comes from living it. It comes from being right at the center of the situation. So we really appreciate your giving your time today and sharing with us. Because of time, let me not take too much of it. Let me invite back our very own Mr. Dele Ogun to just give us the vote of thanks.
And starting right there with our beautiful, eloquent Priscilla, who is from, though that somebody spoke about Igbos and Yorubas by virtue of this event, trying to make out that they're the most important nations in the South. But she's there with us. She's not neither Igbo, not Yoruba, but of a Southern nation, proudly so. And she'll remind us which one it is. Before I call
from
it
Ogoni.
Ogoni.
Yes.
Ogoni. So there you
River
are.
State.
There you are. How we recognize, Fatherland recognizes diversity, welcomes it, embraces it, because that way we'll get that first 11 that I've been speaking about, and it will come from everywhere. So thank you, Priscilla, for anchoring this event so ably. It brought us bang on time back to the 8 o'clock closing of the formalities. You see, we deliver as we promise in the Fatherland. Thanks to you. Thanks so much. I want to thank Mr. Culture himself, Ayon the First. He could not be here with us in person, but those drums spoke to us, always ready to contribute, always ready to exhibit the best that the Yoruba nation can produce. And he's an ambassador, not just for the Yoruba nation, but for Nigeria. And then we had Amarachi Atama, our Igbo songstress. You don't need to understand the words. You don't. That's the beauty of music, of the song. She spoke to all of us. And I share with you, she hadn't slept. So if you felt that that voice was glorious, she was actually in America, and she had been performing till very late in the morning, and then decided just to stay up in order to keep the appointment. Those are the true Nigerians, the ones that are buried by the narrative that we've been subjected to. These are the ones that we're freeing and bringing to the fore. So, Amarachi, thank you so much for your contribution. Our chair, our true Brit, Joe, always on our side, a true patron of the Fatherland Group. And yes, I did say to her, I was a bit concerned since this was going to have a football theme as to whether she'll be able to play the role. And she put me in my place very quickly. Her Geordie background is such that football is right there in her blood. And the rivalry, you see, we talk, sometimes our people think and speak as if we Nigerians, we Africans, are unique in our attachment to identity. But the Geordie will tell you that's the way the Geordies, for those of you who don't know, we're talking Newcastle, Sunderland, as she said, that's the area you're talking about. Northumberland, that area. They attitude to the English proper, because these are the true Brits. The English were the invaders and the colonizers and the dominators. So she talks our language. She understands our experience and where we wish to, where we're going. So Joe, thank you so much for that contribution. Then my brother, Timothy Modu, where does one begin to appreciate this guy? I don't know how long we've known each other. It feels like forever, forever, and long may it continue. He's an ambassador of the East, a fierce Biafran, just as I'm an ambassador of the Yoruba nation, and proudly so. It goes to show how nationalism is often used as a dirty word, but it doesn't have to be. You can recognize the best in your own and celebrate the best in others. What is important is to focus on excellence, the best of what we are. So Tim, thank you so much. Then I now thank the legends. You see, when that moment when Chief Odegbami came on, and then Chief Emmanuel Kala came on, I just said, look, I know we're only in January 2022, but finish this year here. It's closed, shut it down. Let's move to 2023. This year is fulfilled as far as I'm concerned. That moment when those two legends appeared side by side, taking time out of their agenda, priceless for posterity. And then I saw my brother for the first time in Dubusi. We've been sending messages. He's a fatherlander on the platform. His books that he ordered from me, I've been trying to get them across to him in South Africa. And it's the first time that I'm seeing him and hearing him. And what a fantastic contribution and presentation. That I'm so glad that it's captured on video, such that the many more that will hear the broadcasts going forward, valuable lessons for the next generation. The courage of coming out and saying how, by him exposing himself to facts and information and new knowledge, how he's able to see somebody like our laws differently from how he perceived them before. It takes a lot of courage and it takes a lot of honesty. Thank you so much for that. And then we have our brother from South Africa, Dr. Minyuku. My namesake. We've taken each other's names. Those of you who were here for last year's conference know that we took each other's names. And as always bring in precious insight in terms of where we're going. Sometimes we in Fatherland just do things, but we don't know fully where it's going. And he told us in his comments, he said, you are rebuilding. And that's what we are. And that's an answer to many of our people on Fatherland who keep saying, well, what? You mean the problem hasn't been solved yet? You're still talking about it. It's a rebuilding exercise. And he said, it is a process. Those two words, it is a process, and what you're doing, you're rebuilding. What was destroyed, relationships that were fractured deliberately, we are stitching them together again. But it's underway. And he told us that there's, most importantly, what we have above others who've been through this experience, this bitter experience that colonialism left behind. He referenced the plight of the Maoris and the Native American Indians. That at least in our case, we still have hope. We still have the possibility of fixing this thing and becoming who we truly are. That is such an encouraging message to take forward. And then finally, I must thank our DJ. Of course, he's much more than a DJ. You'll have seen his biography as part of the whole collection. Mr. Bonnie Uber, the man who makes Fatherland happen and tick. All the visuals, the hunting for the graphics, That's him right there, always behind the scenes. Yeah. The invisible God himself, showing his face just for this occasion. The work that he did in finding video clips, images, putting the whole thing together. And of course, the music is going to give us in just a few seconds to help us to relax now that we've dealt with the big issues. But remember, everybody, that what we have said here travels beyond those who are listening live, because that's where Bonnie comes into his own, where we will produce the post-production work materials to educate our people. It said if the mountain cannot go to Muhammad, Muhammad will go to the mountain. And Bonnie will make sure that the mountainous knowledge that we've tabled today will get to our people one way or another. So I thank Bonnie. I want to thank you all, the audience. Thank you for your questions. It's been a great conference. It sets up a challenge for us next year. What are we going to come with? How do you top this with the legends, Chief Odigbemi and Chief Okala? How do you beat that? But we're Fatherlanders. Bring it on. 2023 is next, but later this year we do have the Eastern Nigeria Conference again. So Priscilla, we never forget the other nations in the East and their relationship. We'll be addressing those as well. Let me hold my voice and hand over to our DJ, Mr. Bonnie Uber, to sweeten our evening. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Before we do that, you know, sorry, Joe, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say thank you too, Dele, but I think we're probably going to do those honors, Priscilla.
Yes, I am going to thank Dele, the man himself, you know, because yes, Bonnie does great work, but you also, sir, you're our educator. You have informed us not just through your books, but every time these events are put together, you ensure that, you know, you produce sterling work, giving us the history, chronology of everything, and really setting the scene of what the day is going to be about. So we appreciate you, sir, and we want to say to you also, thank you very much for all that you do in Fatherland, for Fatherland, and everything else. And we hope that your voice gets better. I've been consuming my lemon in hot water, so I think you need to get some of that. It's very helpful to keep the voice going. But I also think it's equally important. We shouldn't just rush over. Let's hear about our DJ and our man behind the scenes that gets it all going. So please permit me to introduce our DJ Bonnie properly, just as we have done for everybody else today. He's DJ Bonnie, as we know, is the back office and coordinator at the Fatherland Group. He's also the CEO of BG Media, a digital library service delivering African history, culture, values, and heritage through music, audiobooks, podcasts, and vodcasts as well, to empower the next generation to build their self-love and confidence, as well as the CEO of Focus Advanced Publishing Software, the complete accounting and management software solutions for managing a publishing or book distribution business. So, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it's been a pleasure and a privilege to moderate this event today. But for this moment, permit me, I can't stick around because I have to run to another event. Please forgive me. But thank you all so much for your time. And let me just hand you over to the one and only DJ Bonnie. Sir, please take it away. Thank you very much for being you.
Reviews. You guys were fantastic equally. Your presentations. The chair captured the essence of the dialogue. Dele was subtle and ingenious as always. I must confess your presentation raised the adrenaline of the dialogue. The Fatherland team deserve the best truly. I love every one of them. They sacrifice so much for the healing and restoration of Nigeria. For in Nigeria every citizen will have a sense of belonging and willing to contribute their quota for her growth and development. You can feel the depth of the determination and resilience of Dele and the rest of the team for a free and fair Nigeria. Fantastic dialogue. My regards to all. From Dubi's Isama, the 22nd of January, 2022.
Hi everyone, the Fatherland Group is a global network of Nigerians armed with a deep understanding of our past, present, and our future. Please like, follow, share our YouTube channel. Subscribe. Subscription on YouTube is actually free, so please do that and turn on your notifications. That way you'll be the first to know whenever we share new content. To learn more, please log on to the fatherlandgroup.org. fatherlandgroup.org. Thank you.